All right. Hi. Oh my gosh. That was a graceful way to start. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared, and Happy New Year's. For some of you, it's already 2026 if you're watching from Europe or some other part of the world. Here in Independence, Missouri, it is 8 p.m. Central Time, so still have 4 more hours to go. But I am looking forward to the new year. As always, I'm going to give it some time for people to join. But if you're already here, let me know where you're from. Is it already the new year where you are? And we have Cabria. She just started a channel a couple months ago called Will You Walk with Jesus? It's a second coming channel, so make sure to subscribe to her. She's in the chat right now and she says, let's go. And she is in Arizona, so it is not the new year there yet. I think I've said this on the channel before, but the week between Christmas and New Year's Day is my favorite week of the year because I love to look forward to the future. I love hoping about a bright future and all the possibilities. And so it just always makes me excited. It's a week where in my mind, I'm just wrapping up everything that's happened that year, processing everything, and then getting ready to launch into a new year. A clean slate, full of possibilities. We got Wildberry74. Happy New Year, Jared. If you're here, let me know where you're from. I do have some people that watch from Europe. So for them, it is already New Year's. Excuse me. Let's see. Jessica K. Beauty watching from Iowa. Happy New Year. Okay, so Jessica's in the same time zone as me. And then Cabria says, thanks, Jared. Thanks for all you have done for everyone and me this year. You are the best. Well, I think you are the best, Cabria. You have a really good channel. You've always been a really good follower, subscriber. I've always appreciated seeing you in the comments and in the chats whenever I do live streams. DB says Happy New Year from Mesa, Arizona. God's Girl says Happy New Year from Arizona. Graciela Herrera says from Argentina, Happy New Year. I'm sure in Argentina it's not midnight yet, right? Let's see. What time zone is Argentina in? So over there, it's 11:02 p.m. So out of everybody so far, she's the closest. Everyone that's said something in the chat, she's the closest to midnight. Argentina. Okay, so what I would like to do, and I think I've done this every year that I've had this channel, is ideally on New Year's Eve, I like to review the entire year. Go to my spreadsheet called go to my spreadsheet called Timeline Second Coming, and just review everything that I've added to it. And there have been a lot of things that have taken place this year. A lot of things that I think are significant for the church, milestones in this timeline leading up to the Second Coming. There's been some very unusual things. If I miss anything, please let me know. I always wish I was able to put more effort into this Second Coming timeline spreadsheet that I have, but there's always like this line between, okay, this should go on here, or this should not. And that line a lot of times gets blurry because I can't record everything. I have to use my best judgment and try and figure out, okay, is this truly significant or no? Wildberry Wildberry says, this is Penny. I'm in Virginia, an hour ahead of you. I always look forward to your yearly reviews. Oh, good. I'm glad that somebody enjoys it. I have a feeling it's going to go for a while tonight. I'm thinking this is probably going to be a stream that goes for 2, maybe 3 hours. Who knows? Emmanuel Cibrian, or hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Hi, Jared. Happy New Year to you and your family, and to you as well. What are you guys doing for New Year's Eve tonight? Are you with friends and family? Are you going to watch the ball drop in New York or some other celebration event where you live? Let's see. On and Agit, on Denegas. Happy New Year from Colorado. President Oaks was looking particularly frail at the funeral today. It was a wonderful procession. Yeah, I thought so too. You guys let me know if you watched it. I watched it from beginning to end. It kind of started with the casket and the family coming out of the assembly hall and walking across over into the tabernacle. His children spoke. I think it was, I don't know how many children he has, but it was like 2 sons and then his daughter and then President Oaks. There wasn't anything by way of second coming necessarily, not that I expected that there would be. I don't think there's ever been a time that the second coming has come up in a funeral other than talking about the resurrection. That is certainly second coming related. Let's see. God's Girl, in response to my question, what are you doing for New Year's Eve? She says, watching you. Laugh out loud. Michael Burns says, watching college football. Well, and obviously you watching me as well, right? Wildberry74, 2 or 3 hours. Hooray. I'll grab a snack. Yeah, you better settle in, get some popcorn. I feel like I have a lot to say. Cabria says, my little kiddos are having a mini rave with the chicken dance song. But this one on YouTube TV has strobe lights. I'm gonna have a stroke. Kimmy's Candies says, Happy New Year from Sandy, Utah. My wife used to live in Sandy, just for a little bit when I think she was a toddler at the time. I used to work in Sandy at the Southtown Mall when I was a teenager. Michael Burns, 3 children. Sissy K says, babysitting my granddaughter. Well, that's fun. It's crazy to me because within the next 5 years, potentially, my wife and I might become grandparents, which is something I never really thought would ever happen. I knew it would at some point, but there's a very real possibility. I'm looking forward to babysitting grandkids. Mukil says, were you bummed that we did not get twinkled today? Yeah, I'm bummed every day that we don't get twinkled. Every day that we don't get twinkled. But either way, I enjoyed the funeral. It's going to be hard to picture the Quorum of the 12 without Jeffrey R. Holland. He's just been, from my point of view, basically a permanent fixture in my life, and it's surreal. Janet Manning says, just got done watching Holland's funeral, recorded it ahead of time. Tanya Bishop says, I'm pregnant and nauseous. Been sleeping all day. The Relief Society president brought me dinner tonight for my family. Oh, that's nice. And that's great for New Year's Eve, especially. That's awesome. I hope everything goes well with your pregnancy, and that your nausea will go away. Michelle Burns says, grandparenting is the best. If I knew how much fun grandkids would be, I would have had them first. Yeah, isn't that always how it goes, though? Okay, so let's start digging into this, my spreadsheet that I call a Second Coming timeline. As you know, I prefer to put more emphasis on what has actually happened, rather than try and predict a future timeline, because I feel like prophecy could be fulfilled in a way that we don't expect, or a way that we may not recognize until we're told so after the fact. And so I like to just tie things down to what we actually know. And so when we document certain events, we know that they've happened. And over here to the right, I have all my sources on this spreadsheet. They're in column S if you ever want to verify any of these things. But I'm more concerned with what we know and what has happened. And then I don't mind speculating about the future, but I put a lot less emphasis on that. But I do like to consider possibilities. So the first thing that I have for this year, it was on January 6th. A rare snowstorm and snow emergency declared in Washington, D.C. on the day of election certification. Since it was the first snowfall of the year, they had the 15th annual Great Meridian Snowball Fight, which is held in Meridian Hill Park. Okay, so Trump is now back in office, right? And if the Lord is highlighting this, if it's a foreshadowing of anything, then this makes sense. Rare snowstorm and snow emergency. It's on election day. I don't know how many snowball fights you've participated in, but any that I have been in, it's usually just pure chaos. It's not really organized. I guess maybe sometimes you can join one team against another, but I think the vast majority of them are just pure chaos, every man for himself. And I just thought about that little bit of symbolism where it's like, well, you know, the world continues to get more and more paralyzed, and I feel like you have more and more fracturing within these political parties, movements, philosophies. People are getting more entrenched in their ideas, and you have infighting even within, you know, different political parties. And so maybe things are looking more and more as time goes on, more like a snowball fight. But the day after that, we had the Los Angeles fires that began. And it began in the neighborhood of Pacific Palisades, which has a large Jewish population. And this led to scenes like this. This is on my Facebook account. It's my album for temple pictures. And somebody sent me this. Let's see. What did I say? I'm not exactly sure when it was taken, but this was originally sent to me January 10th. Credit to anonymous friend of Ann Rodas. Yeah. So this is the Los Angeles, California temple. And then back there, this was the fire. There were a bunch of different fires in the Los Angeles area. One of them, and I think this one was the Hollywood Hills fire, if I'm not mistaken. But it made for this really dramatic temple, or this really, really dramatic picture. Obviously, the temple was okay. But I don't know. I'm not aware of any other times that a wildfire has gotten so close to a temple. I know that there was one in, I think, Samoa or Tonga that was destroyed, maybe because of a fire. I'm not sure. That might be the one exception. But, you know, every year since I've started this channel, well, maybe starting like the second or third year, I've always started to wonder at the beginning of the year, what's the first big thing going to be that happens this year? Because if we go back to the beginning of 2024, it started on New Year's Day. There was a 7.6 earthquake and tsunami in Japan. It killed over 100, and that was on New Year's Day. For me, that was the first big thing of that year. For 2023, let's go back to January, or actually February. For me, the way that I perceived it and experienced it, it was the Turkey-Syria earthquake. It was a 7.8, and it killed almost 60,000 people. This is the one that created that dramatic chasm, the splitting of a Mount of Olives in Turkey. Let's see, Olive Grove, Turkey earthquake. I know I bring this up a lot, but for me, it's so dramatic. And I feel like this is definitely a sign, because this is basically what we expect to see when Christ comes to the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. It's going to be something like this. This is a Mount of Olives, or a hill, that, or whatever you want to call it. It's about the same size. It looks very similar to the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. And it was literally cleaved in twain because of an earthquake. And this is just directly north of Israel. Um, does it have the location here? No. I was going to pull it up on a map, but yeah, it's directly north. It's directly north. Let's see, Turkey's southeast. Let's see if this comes up. Turkey maps. Okay, so, it's right. Okay, there's the place marker right there. And then, here's Jerusalem. It's almost directly north. It's north and to the east a little bit. So, all right, let's go back to this. And then we're talking about, if you're just joining, we're talking about the first big things that happened each year since I started my channel. In 2022, so this is the first one I would have experienced since I started my channel, because I started it in August of 2021. January 15th, we had the largest volcanic eruption recorded by modern instruments, and a tsunami that went along with it. The Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai underwater volcano erupted. It also produced the most extreme lightning ever seen. That was noted later as scientists were able to analyze that event. But it wasn't just the largest volcanic eruption recorded by modern instruments, but also the largest explosion, like atmospheric explosion on Earth that's been recorded. That includes nuclear bombs, hydrogen bombs. This is the largest one ever recorded by modern instruments. So anyway, for 2025, that event was the Los Angeles area fires. And it was really dramatic. A lot of people lost their homes. Like I said, there was this kind of like Jewish component to it, where Pacific Palisades has a large Jewish population. I think the other place that was affected, like the two big areas, was Pacific Palisades, and then also Altadena. Is it Pasadena? Or I can't remember, but there was another one that also had a relatively large Jewish population. So that stuck out to me. At this point in January of this year, the war between Israel and Hamas was still raging. And so I thought, okay, maybe something's going to happen this year with Israel or just Jews in general. And yeah, there were some things that happened. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. Okay, and then on January 14th, President Nelson hit his 7-year anniversary as president of the church. We now know, as of New Year's Eve of this year, that this was the year that he was going to pass away. And we learned that he served as president of the church. Let's go to this spreadsheet of mine. He served as president. Excuse me. He served as president of the church for 7 years. Okay, these columns right here represent years starting January 14th of 2018, and they do account for leap years. 7 years, and then in column H, 7 months, and then in pink, 7 weeks, and then in purple, 7 days. I still haven't fine-tuned this. It gets really close to the day that he passed away, and also his funeral. Jen Stevens did this, and I think she's the one that actually put this on my radar, and she was doing it from the day that President Monson passed away. And I think that led I can't remember what she said. I think that made it so that this landed directly on the day that President Nelson passed away, but I haven't updated this yet. I'll probably do that at some point. Okay, so we took note of that because with President Nelson, there were so many times that he would use the number 7 in his talks, um, in the number of temples he announced, the number of countries he visited, all sorts of things. Just clearly, the number 7 was very strongly associated with President Nelson, and I guess that includes everything up to and including the time that he passed away and the length of time that he served as president of the church. Okay, so January 20th rolls around, inauguration day for President Trump, and it was the coldest inauguration day in 40 years. 40 is one of those interesting numbers. It shows up in the scriptures a lot. More recently, we talked about the passing of President Holland, and if you didn't watch that video where I mentioned this, it turns out that the day that he passed away, on the 27th of December, temperatures dropped dramatically because there was a cold front that came through. Before that, we had a record-breaking Christmas, the warmest Christmas on record for Utah. But then he passed away, and temperatures dropped. So something similar going on here with Inauguration Day. Again, I don't know what it means, but all these things are, they don't seem good. They don't sound good for the nation. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. This included a day later snow records that were shattered in Louisiana, Alabama, and Florida, where there were some pretty dramatic scenes of snow-covered beaches. Like there were these like beach resorts that you wouldn't expect to see snow. You know, you would expect to just see them bright and sunny and bright blue water, but no, it was all snowy. Okay, and then the Pacific Palisades fire ends on January 31st. And then we had on the 13th of April, the Auckland, New Zealand temple was dedicated, and it was done on Palm Sunday. It was Elder Patrick Kieran that dedicated it, and he pointed out that it was like a once in a lifetime thing to do a Hosanna shout for a temple dedication that was on Palm Sunday. It's pretty rare, and I took note of it just because the church has been emphasizing Holy Week and Palm Sunday, and beyond that, just the holidays, Easter and Christmas, but especially Easter. So I don't know. I'm fascinated to see where this is going and how the church further observes these holy days, which is, again, it's relatively new to my church experience. Before, I think it was the April 2023 General Conference, I didn't give, I did not give any thought to Palm Sunday or Holy Week whatsoever. I just figured, oh, that's something that other churches do. But I think they're wanting to do that not only to focus more on Christ, but I think it probably has to do with getting ready to receive many new converts into the church before the second coming and or after the second coming with that large influx. The more recent story in regards to that, like kind of like making the church more familiar to Christians from other denominations, is this recent story about opening up the types of Bibles that can be used outside of the King James Version of the Bible. That's something that just dropped like a couple weeks ago. And I think it's just going to make it easier for people that are used to other translations of the Bible. Okay, let me look at the chat really quick. Wildberry says, not having Jeffrey R. Holland here doesn't seem real to me yet. He has been such a strong presence in the church most of my life. Yeah, for sure. Christina Stanfield, I am from Independence, Missouri, but I am watching from Arkansas. Because now you live in Arkansas. Are you going to come back to Independence? Uh, things things have been kind of exciting here this year. We're going to cover some of that in just a little bit. I'm so glad that I moved here early this year so I could witness like all these things that have been happening, both in Independence itself, but also just in here in Northwest Missouri. Okay, Janet Manning says not only signs of things happening here on Earth. What about the skies this next month? There's going to be 11 things that are happening in the sky. I'll have to look into that. If you have any articles that you could send me that could help me out, it'd be much appreciated. Just send me an email. Goblin Camper says, living in St. George area, they are inviting the community to join in President Holland's funeral procession along Tabernacle Street from Main Street to 500 East. Yeah, I remember them mentioning that in the funeral. I'm glad that he's getting buried there in St. George, where he's from. I kind of wondered where he would be buried. I pictured the Salt Lake City Cemetery. I tried to go there when I was there in Utah a couple months ago. I wanted to try and track down some of the grave sites of presidents of the church, but I didn't have enough time on my trip. But that's what came to mind. But I'm glad that he's being buried in St. George. Wildberry, I'm eager to ask President Nelson if he knew he would be serving 7 years, 7 months, 7 weeks, 7 days, and that's why he started his messages with all the sevens, or if he didn't know and was just posting messages Father asked of him. Yeah, that's a big mystery. How much of it was intentional? It seems like it was intentional on somebody's part, whether it was him consciously or whether it was just inspiration that he was receiving from the Lord. But I don't think, when you take it all together, I don't think you can say it's not intentional with as much as we've seen. Patsy Reinhardt, having a quiet, happy New Year at home with my Down syndrome son, Matt. Goblin Camper, his wife's gravesite is in St. George, and there is already a headstone in the St. George City Cemetery. Okay, let's go back to the spreadsheet. Okay, now this was unusual. On April 21st, which is 3 times 7, April 21st, Pope Francis passed away at 88 years old. The day after Easter, also known as Easter Monday, I guess, in the Catholic Church. And after meeting with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. That's another one where I felt like he was still going to be around for a while. For him to pass away the day after Easter, again, I don't know. I feel like there's something to that. I can't tell you what it is. But what I did have on my mind was President Nelson and his age, because President Nelson was still alive at this point. And I was thinking about, let's go to my spreadsheet called Timeline Deaths. This is just one of these strange observations that we've made together, you and I. So it started with President Nelson. When he turned 98, he became the oldest prophet or apostle of this last dispensation. The day before he hit that milestone and broke that record, Queen Elizabeth II passed away. She was the longest reigning British monarch. And then you have all these other figures that were the longest living, the longest serving, or whatever, from these different countries. Mikhail Gorbachev of the Soviet Union, Shinzo Abe of Japan, Jiang Zemin of China. And then we included other things like other people that had the unofficial title of like King of Soccer, the Princess of Rock, the Queen of Rock and Roll. Well, one of the ones that surprised me was Pope Emeritus Benedict the 16th. He was the longest living pope of all time. he passed away on New Year's Eve. 3 years ago, he passed away on New Year's Eve. And this came to my mind when President Holland went to the hospital. It was announced that he was hospitalized on Christmas Eve, and then I didn't think that they would do the funeral today. I figured that they would like wait until like Saturday or something like that, but no, they did it today, and today's New Year's Eve. So he went to the hospital Christmas Eve. His funeral was on New Year's Eve. I don't know. These are just interesting days for these things to happen. But yeah, Pope Benedict passed away on New Year's Eve, 2022. And then even stranger, or what made it even stranger, was Lucille Randon, the longest living nun of all time. She passed away a couple weeks later on January 17th. That's so strange. The longest living pope and the longest living nun, so these are both from the Catholic Church, they pass away within a couple weeks of each other, and the pope passed away on New Year's Eve. And then fast forward to this year, the reason why we're talking about that, Pope Francis passed away the day after Easter, and on Easter Monday. And then about a week later, 1 week after the passing of Pope Francis, the world's oldest person and nun passes away at the age of 116. And then I noted that this is similar to the passing of Pope Benedict, and that world's oldest nun and person. Why is it? Can anyone explain to me, why is it that, like lately, when a pope passes away, the oldest living nun has to pass away within the next couple of weeks? Like, what's going on there? Why do these popes have to pass away so close to these holidays? What does it mean? I don't know. This is one of those things where maybe it doesn't make too much sense to us as members of the church. Maybe there's like more significance behind it from a Catholic point of view. You know that I have my spreadsheets to try and track signs that would probably be signs for Jews for the coming of Messiah, as they anticipate Messiah making his appearance. There's probably, so many things that they would consider signs that would just go over my head because I don't fully understand Judaism. And maybe there's something similar here with Catholicism, but I just find that very strange. Excuse me. Jessica K. Beauty says, Jared, do you know about the upcoming solar flares? A good chance of auroras on the 3rd of January, according to Stephen Burns. His live this evening, he called this year the Year of Fire. I haven't seen that. Let me check something really quick. Let's see, aurora. I always go to the University of Alaska Fairbanks website. I want to see if they have a forecast yet for anything crazy. Oh, it's not loading. Look, it's not. Are there a bunch of people on there right now? Current, next day. Oh, come on. I need to know. I need to know if I need to get ready to. Well, I mean, if I have a couple days, I'm fine. But am I going to be getting more of these pictures right here? We're not even to this point yet on the timeline, but for me, oh my gosh, this was definitely one of the highlights of my year. I never in my life thought I would ever see the aurora with my own eyes, and definitely not from the temple lot. This was a very special experience to me. Okay, let's try this again. Yeah, I don't know. It looks like the site's down. I don't know if maybe there's a lot of traffic. We'll check it again later. Thanks for bringing that up, though, Jessica. Mukiel says, I guess it's none. They spelled it none, like, Nun. I guess it's none of my business. Oh, I love that. Janet says, thank you for letting me know about the aurora. I will look up a beautiful sign in the heavens. Yeah, you guys, if we have another aurora display like this one, we're being given so many chances to see it for ourselves. I tend to think that that's why it's happening. And I don't think it's that it's unprecedented. I'm sure that this has happened with other solar cycles. But now, with social media, now that we all have smartphones, the point is more people are seeing it and can be impacted by it. And even if you don't see it for yourself, people post it on Facebook and other places, Instagram. And so, and with it happening having 3 of them so far and then potentially a 4th, it's got to wake some people up. It's a wonder. It's a sign. It feels like a compression of events. All right. Let's go back here. Okay, April 30th. Really, the 14th of May and April 30th. So on April 30th, the largest wildfire in Israel's history begins on Israel's Memorial Day, the day before Israel's 77th birthday on the Hebrew calendar. So not on our calendar, on the Hebrew calendar. The largest wildfire in Israel's history. And like I said, I felt like the way that the year started off, if we go back to January 7th, and of course it started on the 7th, that's when you had the Pacific Palisades fire that started, a place that has a large Jewish population. So Los Angeles, Israel itself, and then on our calendar on May 14th, that's when Israel turned 77. I'm just always like at a loss for words. I don't know what else I can say. Like, I know not everybody's on the same page and not everybody sees significance in these things, but it just seems too coincidental. It seems too coincidental. A few people have messaged me and said, and I still have to verify this for myself, but there have been people that have said that it was on December 21st of this year, so winter solstice, that Israel was 77 years old, 7 months, like 7 weeks and 7 days or something like that. Which sounds about right. Let's see. Let me look at the chat. Let's see. Tanya Bishop says, oh, I got to go up to this one. I had a friend who lost all 3 daughters in a car accident. She is Buddhist. They chant for 7 days to lead their loved ones to the world of light because they believe the dead don't know they are dead and are lost. On the 8th day, felt heaven in my living room. Jesus told me my friend is beloved daughter even though she doesn't know him. Her family also felt something on day 8, which means something to them. I know he speaks to all of his tribes in the way that they need and can have a relationship with him. I'm sure he would give signs to the Jews and Catholics, and the same with us. Yep, for sure. For sure. I think there's a lot of very profound spiritual things happening to all peoples and kindreds and tongues and tribes. And of course, it's to prepare them to eventually accept the gospel if they're willing, whether it's in this life or in the spirit world. Christina Stanfield says, I'm just visiting in Arkansas. We will be back in Independence by the 3rd. Oh, good. Okay. I'm glad that you live here in Independence. I don't wish everybody lived here, but it's an amazing place. It has been a joy living here. Okay, and then before we move on, one more from Janet Manning. We've had so many warnings, and Jared, a lot of the warnings so come from you because you did a lot of studying on the second coming. Thank you. Remember Noah preached 120 years before the flood. Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm trying to do my part. I hope that my channel has value to you guys. At the very least, to maybe put some of these things on your radar. It's basically a big research project, is the way that I view it. It started out as just kind of like a hobby. I just had stuff I had to say that I wasn't hearing on YouTube. And so I was like, oh, I'll just do a few videos. I'll go record the chickens in my chicken coop and just share some of my thoughts. And the channel just blew up. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'm a YouTuber now. And I don't regret it. It's basically a big, it's a big research project. It's documenting things. It's almost like being a journalist in a way. I've come to realize with all these news agencies and stuff, they must have some type of like archives or spreadsheets or things that they keep, because whenever they are immediately able to write their news articles, you can tell that they already have all those facts and all that data stored somewhere. So I feel like what I'm doing is I'm like almost being like a little private citizen. What do they call it? Citizen journalist, where it makes it easy for me to do videos. The more data I collect, I can refer back to all this stuff that I've collected, and so I feel like it's useful to me, and I hope it's useful to you. My spreadsheets are available to everybody. The link is in the description box of each video. But yeah, we're trying to watch for signs of the times. We're also looking into church doctrine, and we're trying to be spiritual as well. We're also looking into church history and all sorts of stuff. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so on Israel's birthday, the Nairobi, Kenya temple was dedicated. On the 25th of May, the Abidjan, Ivory Coast temple was dedicated. And then May 30th. Okay. Speaking of Independence, Missouri. Canadian wildfire smoke fills the skies over Independence, Missouri on the first day of Community of Christ 2025 World Conference. Okay, this was big for me because let me put the camera on me while I look some stuff up. This was big for me because in 2023, the United States experienced a really big event where that was the year that Canada had its largest single wildfire, as well as its worst wildfire season. And the wildfires were so bad, they were so bad that the wildfire smoke was coming down into the United States, and it was darkening the skies over a lot of our major cities, like going pretty far south. And I couldn't track every single city, so I narrowed it down to state capitals, and in the case of Canada, provincial capitals. And there was Canadian wildfire smoke in so many that covered so many different states. It was really dramatic in Washington, D.C. and New York City. And then it also crossed the ocean and was in the skies over Lisbon, Portugal, and Madrid, Spain. And so when something similar started happening this year, and with me having just moved to Independence, Missouri, and being keenly aware that Community of Christ was having their world conference this year, I was like, okay, yeah, something is going on right now. Because here we go. I finally found it. Because they don't have their world conference, which is their equivalent of general conference. They don't have it every year. They have it every 3 years. In this case, it was 2 years since the last one, but I think they bumped it up because they were having a change in president of the church. For the first time ever, uh, they ordained a female prophet president of Community of Christ. What you're looking at right here, I've already shown it before on the channel, but this is the temple lot, and you can't really tell from this video, but you can see that there's this pinkish hue in the sky, and you can maybe tell that it's smoky. I guess you just would have had to have been there. You can't see the sun here, but there were days where you could see the sun, and the sun was like a really deep orange color. The occasion of this video was I was there right after the session where they ordained Stassi D. Cramm as prophet president. So I was over here in the World Plaza. This is their temple. I was watching the big screen, and I didn't know that they were going to do this, but I watched them start to do this procession out of the auditorium. I watched it on the screen, and then I watched it in person and recorded it as they were coming out of the auditorium. It was led by this group of like these African people that were singing a song, and then they all just poured out. And let's see, where is she? Oh, must be back here somewhere. Anyway, Stassi D. Cramm was here somewhere. I want to see if I can. Come on. Where is she? Right there. Right there. You see my mouse? Right there. She's looking right at me. Look. Look, she is looking right at me. Later, they made their way to the World Plaza is what they call it. And she was greeted and received by members of the church as they were congratulating her on her recent ordination that had just taken place. So you should really watch this. It's really something else. Here she is again. I'll put a link for this in the description box below. But yeah, you had this Canadian wildfire smoke that started on the first day of their world conference. And then on June 1st, the day that she was ordained, the first female prophet president of their church, the aurora was visible on that night. I should actually change this because I don't know if it was visible in Independence, but it was visible in Missouri. I'm not going to pull it up right now. I wonder if I have the reference over here. Yeah, look right here. Fox 4 KC. Northern Lights infrastructure impacts possible due to severe... Wait, maybe this was just the forecast. But I can tell you this. There were people in Missouri that saw the aurora that day. There was a geomagnetic storm on the day that she became the prophet president. So Canadian wildfire smoke, and then aurora in Missouri. And then on June 3rd, there was a EF1 tornado that struck Independence, Missouri, right as Community of Christ was conducting one of its legislative meetings, or kind of like conference sessions, in the auditorium at their conference center. And the tornado struck a company called Temple Engineering Incorporated over on Truman Road. I want to actually pull that up. I want to pull it up because I feel like all of this is significant. I feel like her becoming president of the church is evidence of them kind of like moving further and further away from their roots. And I wouldn't be surprised. I think that they're actually moving this direction where I think they're getting to the point where they're going to be selling their temple and auditorium. They actually referred to that as the temple complex. It's the temple, the auditorium, and the stone church. Those three together, I don't know if there's more, but those three together comprise the temple complex. And it's very expensive. Like when you look at their budget, it It costs a lot of money to maintain those and to pay for the insurance. And so if she's the one that ends up selling those properties, then maybe it makes sense that you would have all these signs attending her ordination. So this is KMBC News 9, and here it is. The temple, or the tornado struck right here. A company called Temple Engineering, and I know that they don't construct temples. I know. It's a railroad company. They produce chemicals that are used in the railroad industry, but the name of the company is Temple Engineering. And some of the land that would be needed for the 24 temple complex is land that they own, where their spiral temple currently is. So what happened with her becoming the new prophet president may be significant. Earlier this month on YouTube, they put out all these different videos, and one of them was by Stassi D. Cramm, and we analyzed it, and the language is pretty thinly veiled, in my opinion, that they're definitely preparing their church for some big change. Is it going to be the sale of the temple and the auditorium? I don't know. Is it going to be the sale of meeting houses? Because maybe it seems like they're wanting to go more and more online with church. Maybe it's that. But the wording that they have chosen for all these different messages, I feel like it clearly indicates that they're preparing for some big change. I actually found, let me see if I can find this for you in case you're interested. I actually found, let's see, Walnut Gardens. I came across this on X. And then it directed me to come here to Facebook. I may do a video about this. It's hard to get a transcription because the audio quality is pretty bad. But on December 7th, the Walnut Gardens Community of Christ, which is here in Independence, they had Stassi D. Cramm come and speak, and what she said was pretty similar to her YouTube message, but it was expanded. In some ways, I felt like it was a little bit more on the nose. So you may want to check this out, or yeah, I may do a video. It just depends. But there's been messaging from her in that cluster of videos that came out on December 1st. We heard one of their apostles do a message back in, I want to say it was like July. Her message really seemed to indicate that they want to move away from their traditions and potentially the temple and auditorium. I don't know. There's been a lot. And I've had Grok analyze the transcripts, and it identified specific phrases and wording and scriptures that other churches have used, other Christian churches that have done similar things, like that have sold their headquarters building or sold a bunch of meeting houses. So that's something maybe to look forward to in 2026. Grok said, yeah, this clearly looks like that's what's going on. And usually when you get this type of messaging, you can expect the big announcement. So I think it said something like 6 to 18 months later, something like that. But anyway, okay. There was the tornado. That's what we're talking about right now. I have my other channel called Explore Church Sites. I haven't made any videos for it in a while. I've been really busy. But I got to experience that event. I had just been at the 8 Witnesses Monument in Liberty, and all of a sudden there was a tornado warning, and we couldn't get home in time. And so as we were driving, The only place that I really know, the only place I really knew to go was the Independence Visitor Center, and so we hurried there and took shelter in the basement. It was a really interesting experience. It was very spiritual, actually. But that this is something that also happened during their world conference. I'm going to try and find something else. Let's see. Missouri tornado map. Here we go. I think it's this right here. I got to show you this. Okay, so I've already shown this in another video or two. Here's Missouri. These are all the tornadoes from 1950 until present. And present meaning, let's see, September 30th, 2025. Oh, September. So this has been updated since the last time I looked at it. Okay, so here's Kansas City right here. You see right here, Kansas City. And you notice how there's like a circle right here, like an empty area where there aren't any tornadoes. Well, it turns out that in the middle of that bubble of no tornadoes is Independence, Missouri. And let's see, is this? Oh yeah, they've updated this. Here's the June 3rd tornado. So here's Truman Road. So this is where, like right about here is where Temple Engineering is at. Oh, I'm so glad that they updated this. So I'm glad because it turns out that this same tornado that hit Temple Engineering since 1950, it's the tornado that's gotten the closest to the Temple lot. So the Temple lot is over here. You see this green right here. You can see the spiral temple. This is the Community of Christ temple. Here's the Independence Visitor Center. This green lot right here, this is the Temple lot. So since 1950, this is the one tornado that's gotten the closest to the Temple lot. And it hit a company called Temple Engineering. And it struck during Community of Christ 2025 World Conference. And it happened during one of their sessions. And this is after the Canadian wildfire smoke that started on the day of their conference. And after the Aurora, the geomagnetic storm on the day that Stassi D. Cramm was ordained. And then a couple days later, you have this. So you're going to tell me that nothing is going on here, that there isn't something going on. And then especially when we hear all these messages from them where it seems like they're getting ready for a big change, I think something's going on. Oh, by the way, it wasn't just one tornado. There were actually two. So you have this one, and then the other one, I think it's this one right here. I don't know if this is Independence though. I think that this is in Raytown. But there was another tornado that struck near the you see the Chiefs Stadium, and then this is for the Kansas City Royals. So yeah, these two tornadoes right here, this one and this one, that is crazy to me. That is crazy to me. I want to look at the chat again. Reginald Drar. Check out Stephen Burns' episode 2 days ago about volcanic activity increasing. Some of the names of volcanoes / locations refer to fire, wheat, and harvest. Dates are notable too. Yeah, I'll have to look. I'll have to look into that. I have a spreadsheet for volcanoes and volcanic activity. Um, it's a little bit hard to keep on top of, but I may need to go ahead and update that. Um, generally speaking, generally speaking, there has been an increase in volcanic activity. Let me see if I can pull it up. Signs, volcanoes. Let me just remind myself how I have this organized. Um, okay, so look. Here's a table. I got this information from, oh, what was it? It's been a while. I think it was the Smithsonian has a website. A part of their website is for volcanoes. Um, and so they have all this like data that they've put together that you can access. And so here you have these two graphs. Excuse me. So you have total eruptions per year since 1960 is this first one, and here's the trend line right here. So that is going up. Since 2010, if you just look at the last 10 years, is actually trending down a little bit or kind of staying the same. So that's total eruptions. And then you have new eruptions. I guess if you're just, because I think that has to do with like you have some volcanoes that are just always erupting, but then you have other ones where it's like they take a long break and then they erupt. I think that's what new eruptions are, but it looks pretty similar. Since 1960, there's a somewhat of an upwards trend. Since 2010, it's actually a downward trend. Um, and then you have this other category, active volcanoes per year. And it looks like with both of them, since 1960 and 2010, it's an upwards trend. So that's by year. And then this one, this is based on another report, where I've like had to I've had to like manually enter these numbers for each day, or well, not each day, but each like I think it's updated like weekly or something. Like so, here's like June 5th of last year, and then June 6th, June 12th, and then June 19th. So yeah, it's like a weekly report. And this would I've only been able to do this back to 2020, but you can see since 2020, it's an upwards trend. So anyway, yeah, I'll have to look into that. You know what? Let's go back. Let's see if the University of Alaska website. Let's see if that's working now. It's not. I want to see it because I want to see what the forecast is. Okay. I wonder if there's any articles. Let's go to news. I'm not seeing any articles yet about that. Goblin Camper says, I want to share an experience that my mom told me. She mentioned that she had a dream where her mother, my grandmother, came to her and said he is coming soon, meaning Christ is preparing to return. In the dream my mother had, she asked her mother what she meant by soon, and her mother said much else. But those on the other side are busy preparing. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Mukiel says, I remember in a past video you mentioned on possibly making a members only video on the adversary Marvel slash LDS connection. Is that still in the works for 2026? Oh, I can try. I can try. Um, so Mookie is talking about the Marvel movies. Um, a lot of those movies seems like they intentionally incorporate spiritual themes, second coming themes, and some things that I feel like are specific to our church. The only example that I have that comes to mind, I'd have to go through each movie with a fine tooth comb, but we watched the series on Disney Plus called Loki, which is actually a really, like, from a sci-fi point of view, it's a fascinating series. But they have an episode that's called 1893, and that's the year that the Salt Lake Temple was dedicated. That's also the year of the World Fair. But if I was to put it all together, I think you would see why it seems like a lot of what they do is very intentional. Um, Maybe it's just that they draw inspiration from end times motifs because it makes for good movies and good stories or something like that. But one of the interesting things that they do, and I think that this is in every single movie, is they always include a key part where one of the characters say, I am. Like, look at that when you watch the Marvel movies. Whenever they say, I am, because you know that in the Old Testament, that's what God said his name was. I am that I am. And you should just watch how they incorporate that in the movies. It's very intentional because it's always at like key moments in the movie. um, God's Girl says, Jared, did you know that on August 18th we had the first super kilonova ever seen? Really? Super kilonova? Hmm. Astronomers may have detected a first of its kind super kilonova. A massive star's collapse may have birthed two tiny neutron stars that spiraled together and merged before they could even leave their parent's side. Okay, well, that's probably going to be another one for my spreadsheet that has to do with signs and stars. So, okay. Let's get back to this. Thank you for that, by the way, God's Girl. How many people are watching right now? We got 60 people watching. Okay. So, so there were all these odd things during Community of Christ's World Conference, the one in which they ordained the new prophet president, Stassi D. Cramm, the first female prophet president, the one that I think is going to make big changes to their church. Canadian wildfire smoke, the aurora, and the closest tornado to the temple lot since 1950 at least. Okay. A few days later, I can't remember when their conference ended, but it goes for a while. It goes for like 8 days. So this may have been while their conference was still going on. But you had these ICE protests and riots that started up. And there was an especially big one in Los Angeles. I don't know if that's where it started, but that was making a lot of news at the beginning. The Syracuse, Utah temple was dedicated on that same day, June 6th. And then, now this right here is really notable, I think. And then, on the 13th of June, although we didn't know it at the time, we had a war that started called the 12-Day War between Israel and Iran. And it was pretty dramatic, I would say. Um, every single day, Iran was firing ballistic missiles at Israel. Um, it seemed like it was like several times a day. Um, all the while, Israel was attacking nuclear sites in Iran, and Iran was getting pounded really hard. And there was like this intense exchange, which I guess is now being called a war. It was essentially a war within a war, because you already had this war between Israel and Hamas, which uh, ballooned to include six other belligerents against Israel. So they described it as a seven front war, by the way. So you have Hamas, which is number one. You have they included the West Bank as another one. Yemen, number three. Syria and Iraq, meaning the like the militias that were allied to these other groups. Those militias, 4 and 5. Hezbollah, number 6. And then number 7 is Iran itself, a seven front war. And you had this basically a war within a war, the 12-day war. And I'm not sure that we've seen the end of it, although it doesn't seem like Iran really accomplished much. They did cause some damage, but I mean, they left some holes in some buildings, but I feel like up until this point, there was always this concern about about Iran and what happens if there's full scale war between Iran and Israel, and would it turn into World War III? And then another concern is Iran developing nuclear weapons, but up until this point they hadn't. But there was still this concern about, even without nuclear weapons, would this spark World War III? Well, it didn't. Iran did not cause that much damage, from what I can tell, and it just kind of petered out. Part of that war was the United States becoming involved, where B-2 bombers that flew out of Missouri, of all places, because that's where the B-2 bombers are stationed at. I still why can I never remember the name? I think it's called Whiteman Air Force Base. Yeah, Whiteman Air Force Base. Um, so you had B-2 bombers that struck sites in Iran, notably the Fardo nuclear site, and then 3 days after that, that's when the 12-day war ended. Um, we think about this because we think about the Battle of Armageddon. What is that going to look like? Who are the belligerents going to be? Is it going to be the alliance, the axis of Iran and Hezbollah and whatever? Is it going to include other nations? Is Russia at some point? Because you have all sorts of theories of who makes up the alliance of Gog and Magog, and I don't really get into that too much, but I am interested as to how it would literally happen, how there would be a battle in northern Israel. And I don't know. You have Hezbollah. I don't know how strong they are. I don't know if they would even have the ability to infiltrate into northern Israel and create such a battle. I don't know. Like, there's just so much that I don't know. But whenever you have anything going on, especially with the north of Israel, that's when I start to pay attention. And this is what we've had. So we had the first ever war between Israel and Iran. That's something that happened this year in 2025. This was after the Los Angeles fires that impacted a large Jewish community in Los Angeles. This comes after Israel's largest wildfire in Israel's history on Israel's on Israel's birthday on the Hebrew calendar. So 2 fire events, and then you had this 12-day war. So I don't know. I don't know if those things pointed to the 12-day war, because the 12-day war itself may lead to something else bigger next year or the year after that. Who knows? Okay, on July 12th, uh, there was a record-breaking tornado in Utah. It was a fire nado, so it's the largest fire nado that Utah has ever seen. And then, as far as just being a tornado, it tied for the strongest tornado ever recorded in Utah. It was part of the Deer Creek fire. A lot of tornado things going on here in Independence, Missouri. Fire nado in Utah, and not just any regular tornado, but it was a fire nado, tied for strongest ever recorded. August 17th. Sorry, let me put my screen up. August 17th, the Farmington, New Mexico temple was dedicated. September 9th was President Nelson's 101st birthday. Also on that day, and I don't think it was a coincidence, Israel struck Qatar. And it's still my understanding that's what led to the ceasefire that is currently still holding. So that key moment took place on President Nelson's 101st birthday. I also have recorded that Poland on that same day became the first NATO member to fire during the Ukraine war by shooting down Russian drones that had violated its airspace. And then the day after, in Utah, at Utah Valley University, you had this event that took place. That's a lot of stuff to happen on and immediately after President Nelson's birthday. Also on September 10th, there was an unusually deep earthquake, 68 kilometers to be exact, which means that it originated in Earth's mantle, so not in the crust, struck near Vernal, Utah, the same day as what happened at Utah Valley University. 3 days later, again in Utah, there was an unusual tornado in southeastern Utah that destroyed multiple homes. That's not something that you typically see in Utah. Utah does experience tornadoes. It has something like 2 or 3 or 4 tornadoes a year, but usually it's just out in the boonies somewhere. So it's unusual to have this type of thing where a tornado actually destroys homes in Utah. So Independence, Missouri tornado, fire nado, ties for strongest in Utah history in the Deer Creek fire, unusual southeastern Utah tornado, and then we have to throw in, go back to 1999 and think about the August 11th tornado in downtown Salt Lake City, just a few months before the year 2000. It is on the 11th. We've been talking about 11 a lot lately. So I don't know. September 15th, BYU Idaho broke enrollment records. 1, most new students, including transfer students, for second year in a row, up 18% over last year. And then number 2, largest number of new freshmen, 5,500, breaking the previous record of 4,900 in 2020, up 11%. This is something that church leadership has said is a hastening of the work. It's not just missionary work. It's not just family history. According to what they have said, it also involves education, whether it's religious education, like enrollment in seminary and institute, or, going to college and receiving a formal secular education. So this seems significant. There's a lot of things going on with the youth and the young adults right now. This is, the Lord's Youth Battalion. President Nelson identified the Lord's Youth Battalion during his presidency, and it just seems like there's been a lot going on with them. Okay, and then, to my surprise, not surprised, but still, yes, surprised. And this is when I was in Utah. I can't believe that this happened while I was in Utah. I only go to Utah, like, since I started my channel, I basically go to Utah once a year at this point. So for the week that I was there, President Nelson passed away on the 27th. Just like President Holland, as we just recently found out, who passed away on the 27th of December. He passed away 7 days before General Conference. There's another one of his sevens, along with just being the 27th. President Nelson served as president of the church for 7.7 years, or in other words, 2,813 days. And then if you break it up into years and months and weeks and days, it's 7 years, 7 months, 7 weeks, 7 days. And then I noted that both him and President Holland passed away in the same month that they were born. I know that just in general, that's probably not like really, really rare or anything like that, but I don't think it's super common either. And to have the president of the church pass away like this, and then exactly 3 months later, the president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, and they have all these similarities in their death dates. I don't know. It feels like there's some kind of connection between them. It's also interesting that President Nelson and President Oaks were called to the apostleship in 1984, and 10 years later, that's when President Holland became an apostle. So it's just interesting stuff. The day after he passed away, we had this event that took place in Michigan. So again, I feel like maybe since his birthday, definitely since the day that he passed away, there's been this compression of events. There's been a lot of stuff that's happened. October 1st, the record-breaking government shutdown began. During General Conference on October 4th, there was a 100-year storm in Utah during Saturday sessions of General Conference, and flooding in Salt Lake City proper, like not just the metro area, but in Salt Lake City itself and in Tooele County, which is interesting because we've talked about how I always forget. I think it was LeGrand Richards and Mark E. Peterson. One of them passed away January 11th, 1983. And then that spot was not filled for that whole year for 1983. And then exactly a year later, on January 11th, 1984, the other one passed away, and now you had 2 spots that were vacant. And in the middle of that time, not the exact middle, but in between those 2 deaths, you had flooding in downtown Salt Lake. The 1983 flood in downtown Salt Lake. Well, now that President Holland has passed away, we look back and we notice this unusual thing where President Nelson and President Holland both died on the 27th, and in between their 2 death dates, there was a flood in downtown Salt Lake. All right. Okay, now, on the day of President Nelson's funeral, it was the 2-year anniversary of the Israel-Hamas war. So that's interesting. And 3 days later, is when they reached a ceasefire. Now it's still yet to be seen if that's going to hold. My understanding is that there's like this plan in place where there's these different phases, and I think they're looking to move to phase two. I haven't checked on this in a few days, so I don't know if they've reached that if they've reached that point yet or not. But it seems like things are pretty shaky. So it's like all the progress, progress that we've had this year with this conflict. I wonder if it's just going to get even worse next year potentially. What if the ceasefire breaks down and it gets even uglier? What if there's another war with Iran, and maybe Iran is better prepared next time? Who knows? October 12th, the Elko, Nevada temple was dedicated. Even though I don't have it here, in the October. Well, no, we'll get to that in just a second. Never mind. Okay, October 14th, President Oaks becomes president of the church. It's the 2-year anniversary of the Utah annular solar eclipse. I better pull that up. Give me just 1 second. So the war with Hamas started October 7th of 2023, right? And what happened was, sorry, give me just 1 second. Let's turn all these off. Turn on the eclipses. Oh, that's what we got to do. Okay, so eclipses. All right. Well, you know what? Let's do this. Let's turn on the Missouri ones. No, let's okay. Missouri, Ohio, New York. So we've had these eclipses that it feels like everybody has already forgotten. Where you had the one in 2017 that went across the United States. Here's the path of totality. This is the KMZ file from NASA. And the path of totality went over all these historic church sites, including Adamondiaman up here, this cluster of sites right here. This is Adamondiaman. Here you have Independence, Missouri. The only one that it did not go over is there's a property over here in Kansas City that was owned by Bishop Partridge, as well as Alexander Donovan. But with all these other church sites, Far West, the Battle of Crooked River, Tinney Grove, DeWitt, the site where Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith were allowed to escape in Rothville, Missouri. All of these were within the path of totality of the 2017 eclipse, which took place on President Monson's 90th birthday, and just a few months before President Nelson would become president of the church. Then, last year, we had the 2024 eclipse, and that one went over the sacred sites in New York. It went over the Kirtland Temple, which had just been purchased a month before. I was there to document that. And it also went across the United States. But in between those two total solar eclipses, there was an annular solar eclipse on the 14th of October, 2023, 7 days after the war started. Israel 365 wrote an article about this and felt that it was significant. And of all places, the path of annularity went through Utah. And the only temple that was in operation at the time was the Monticello, Utah temple here in southeast Utah. At the time, the Manti temple was under renovation, so it was decommissioned. This is basically the one path that the path would have to take to miss as many temples as possible in Utah. And that's what happened. Very unlikely. So, going back here, President Oaks becomes president of the church on the 2-year anniversary of the Utah annular solar eclipse. I might as well mention this as well. Let's go to timeline jubilees. Joseph Smith, during his lifetime, he introduced this concept of a 7-year jubilee. So the first one coincided with the dedication of the Kirtland Temple. Here's this right here. You can read this. I'm not going to rehash it, but you can read this if you want. So the first jubilee, and this is not a jubilee like in the Bible where it's 50 years. I still don't know much about this type of jubilee doctrinally. We don't have very much other than just what I'm showing you. But Joseph Smith said that that was a jubilee year. It was the 7th year of the church, right? Because here's 1830. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1836 was the 7th year of the church, and it was a jubilee according to Joseph Smith. And then 7 years later, 1843, starting on April 6th, you had the second jubilee of the church. Since that time, I'm not aware of any other times that we've had any other 7-year jubilees, but it seems like it was meant to continue. If it had, that's what I have recorded here in column O. It turns out that President Nelson became president of the church in the 27th. Oh my gosh, I just realized that. Look, 27. The 27th Jubilee. And then President Oaks became president of the church during the 28th Joseph Smith Jubilee. And you had the 2017 eclipse that happened the year before, and then the 2024 eclipse that happened a year before that next Jubilee. Now, President Nelson did not become president of the church strictly during the Jubilee itself, because it seems like it would have started April 6th of 2018. But he did become president of the church during that calendar year. But President Oaks, he did become president of the church during the Jubilee, which started on April 6th of 2025. And I can only assume that it's going to continue to go on until April 6th of 2026. So it would seem that we're still in this 28th Jubilee, the 7-year Jubilee cycle, if that's even still a thing. I kind of think that it is, but just look how that lines up. Okay, so let's move on. The Grand Junction, Colorado Temple was dedicated by President Jeffrey R. Holland. I don't know why I put that, but I did. The 210th Temple of the Church. We had these two comets that made their closest approach to Earth one day after another on the 20th and the 21st. This happened at that time where you had this swarm of comets that came into the inner solar system. Sorry, I don't have a visual of that right now, but you had 7 comets that came into the inner solar system around the same time, a very narrow window of time. I used a website. What's it called? I think it's called something like the Night Sky Live or something like that. It has like a model of the solar system, and it shows all the comets and the planets, and you can fast forward and you can rewind. We watched from the year 2000 all the way until the end of this year, and I watched the solar system. I watched comets come in, and there, at least since the year 2000, there has not been a time like the last couple months where you've had so many comets come in at the same time, including 3i Atlas, which has had all these very strange characteristics to it. So anyway, So that happened around the time that President Oaks became president of the church. On the 28th, we had Hurricane Melissa that hit Jamaica. I want to say it was a record-breaking. Yeah, it was. I just don't have it recorded here. It was a record. It was a record-breaking hurricane in that it was the strongest hurricane to make landfall in the Atlantic on record. We noted that in general conference you had one speaker, I can't remember his name, but he gave a very passionate talk, who was from Jamaica, and he mentioned Jamaica in his talk. And then you had Sister Brown, and then Elder, I'm not sure his name, but he's in the 70, who Sister Brown for a time, in her youth, she lived in Jamaica for a while. And then the 70, he is from New York, but he grew up in Jamaica, like the neighborhood of Jamaica, New York City, New York. So it's interesting because it made me think about the 2011 tsunami in Japan, where I think it was the year before, you had an elder that was from Japan that spoke. And in his talk a year before, he mentioned tsunamis. And then a year later, you had that massive tsunami that struck Japan. And then afterwards, he spoke one more time in general conference, and he told his story because he actually experienced the tsunami. He was safe, but he relates his story of the day of the earthquake and the tsunami. And so I feel like something similar happened this year with Jamaica. October 28th, new sleeveless garments for women available nationwide in the United States. I don't know if it's the whole world at this point, or if it's just the United States and certain nations. If you know, let me know in the chat or in the comments. October 30th, 3i Atlas made its closest approach to the sun. And then November 5th, the shutdown ended, and it did become the longest shutdown in U.S. history. And then on November 11th, we had another Aurora event. We had two of them back in 2024. One of them was in May, and that one it blew me away because, again, at that time, I was living in South Central Kansas. I never expected to see the Aurora for myself, but of all places, I saw it about an hour south of Wichita. And this was, just a couple months after the church had purchased the Kirtland Temple, and after I saw the total solar eclipse at the Kirtland Temple. So I was like, okay, wow, that feels like a sign of the times. These pictures were all over social media. Everybody was posting pictures that looked like this. And then it happened again in October. So in that time, it seemed like people were less excited about it because I guess, we already had it once that year. So it's like, oh, okay, it's happening again. But then this year on November 11th, which now we know turns out to be the exact midpoint between the passing of President Nelson and President Holland. Okay, the night of the 11th and the 12th. That's the exact midpoint between their death dates. We had a third one that was seen as far south as Florida. At least all the continental United States saw it. I'm not sure about Hawaii. Alaska definitely saw it. But we had another one of these events. And this time I captured it from the Temple Lot here in Independence, Missouri. And I'm wondering if we're about to have another one. Let's check that website again. Let's refresh it. Dang it. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong either. I think the website's just down. Here, let's go out and then go back in. No, let's go to NOAA. No, this is just a 30-minute. That's why I don't really use this one, because it's only 30 minutes ahead. Ugh, I'm dying to know. I'm dying to know. But anyway, we had this, and for some reason, the timing was such that it was exactly between their two death dates. Feel like something is going on. November 19th, the Saturday evening sessions of General Conference are now discontinued. Something I never thought I would ever see in my lifetime. The Bahia Blanca Argentina temple was dedicated on the 23rd of November. On December 14th, the Portland, Maine temple was announced by Elder Alan D. Haney, United States Northeast Area President, at a stake Christmas devotional of all places. First time a temple has been announced by a member of an area presidency. And I'm sure it's probably the first time a temple has been announced from like a devotional. I would think. I've never heard of any other temples being announced at devotionals. Okay, on the 16th, there was the new guidance that was published on using other translations of the Bible. We were talking about that earlier. How this is probably just going to help even more with large numbers of converts joining the church, being able to keep something that they're more familiar with and easing the transition. That's my take on it. On the 24th, on Christmas Eve, that's when President Holland was hospitalized. I don't think that's by accident. And then today, or sorry, I'm jumping the gun. And then on the 27th, exactly 3 months after President Nelson's passing, that's when President Holland passed away. On the Hebrew calendar, it was the 7th of Tevet. Tevet is the first winter month, and he passed away on the 7th. It was also the Jewish Sabbath. Let's see, we've already talked about that. And then we had this thing where Utah, or at least Salt Lake City, and many other cities across the country experienced their warmest Christmas on record. Salt Lake City was one of them. And then just a couple days later, that's when the cold front came through and temperatures plummeted the day that he passed away. I don't think that's coincidence. It's like, let's go to timeline, let's go to signs, church specific. It's like May 31st of 1994. I always associated this with President Ezra Taft Benson because he passed away on the 30th, and a day afterwards, there was an unusual derecho in Utah and Wyoming. In fact, why don't we pull this up? We talked about this recently, but you had this really strong wind, a derecho, which is basically hurricane force winds, that swept right through Utah, and Salt Lake City was dead center of this event. It was dead center the day after President Benson passed away. And what I didn't think about until recently is that this happened just like a couple weeks before President Holland became an apostle. So it might be a sign for both of them. And, just like this derecho, President Holland was very powerful with his speaking. He really touched the hearts of many people. That's been talked about a lot since his passing. They were talking about that a lot in his funeral today. So, I don't know. It's just, I don't think that you can ignore these things. Again, I don't know exactly what they mean. They may just be highlighting, certain people and events. But I'm trying to document everything that I can. Okay, and so that brings us up to date with what I have for my spreadsheet for my second coming spreadsheet. Let me turn this light on and then, okay. Let me go to the chat. I don't know where I left off. Okay, right here. Primetime KCL. Hello, Jared. In chat, popping in to say hello and Happy New Year. Olga Schmal says hi from Salt Lake City. Dominic Balin says 2026 will be the USA's 250th. Well, sorry, will be USA 250. 2 plus 5 equals 7. Does that mean America is complete? I don't know. Maybe. I whether that's a thing or not, I definitely think that next year is going to be an important year because of the 250 year anniversary. I've covered on the channel before that there are a lot of times that the church does special things for these like round numbers, like in church history, but I think it would also apply to the United States. For example, I don't know if it was the 50th anniversary or the 100th anniversary, but the church did an actual jubilee where debts were forgiven, and there were like these special things that took place where they had like an actual jubilee, which involved 50 years. We just had in 2020 the 200-year anniversary of the first vision, and that made for a really important general conference where special things happened. And so, and the church has done this thing with the 250 food trucks, and they're participating in different things with this celebration. So I think there's going to be probably a lot of videos to make that have to do with the 250th anniversary. I think there's going to be interesting things that happen. Kiori says, I am Iron Man. Yeah, we were talking about the Marvel movies earlier. Deborah says, hi, Jared. Happy New Year. Thank you for helping us to watch and pray for the Savior's return. David Sly, just got here from Dallas Fort Worth tonight. What a year. Does the atmosphere feel different than normal to anyone? Just feels strange. Fort Worth Temple coming right along. Yeah, I'd say that things feel different and strange. I definitely feel that. For me, this whole year has been really interesting and odd. Last year, for me, was just solidly a really good year. It was a very spiritual year. A lot of good things happened. This year we moved to independence, which was really good, but it's just, I don't know, it's been very good, but very strange. A lot of moving pieces. And so as we're reflecting on 2025, yeah, I do kind of feel strange moving into the new year. I think it's going to be good. I'm excited about it. I'm always hopeful, second coming or not. I think it's going to be a good year. We're going to get to become more familiar with President Oaks as president of the church and see what his prophetic priorities are going to be, and the things that he does. We saw these things happen under President Nelson, all these big changes to the church and big milestones like the dedication of the Rome-Italy temple. Well, there's probably going to be things that happen during President Oaks' presidency that are going to be just as big, if not bigger. So anyway, we're essentially going to experience President Oaks' first year as president of the church. I mean, he could always pass away. He's in his 90s, but we'll just have to see how everything goes. Goblin Camper says, it's hard to think that President Henry B. Eyring will be the president of the... Okay. It's hard to think that President Henry B. Eyring will be the president of the Quorum of the 12, and Dieter F. Uchtdorf will be the acting president of the Quorum of the 12. I remember when President Hinckley called Henry B. Eyring to the first presidency in 2007, President Eyring had been, had been in the first presidency for a while now. Oh yeah. you just reminded me there was something that I wanted to do. Am I going to be able to do it? Yeah, of course I will. There's something that I wanted to do where I wanted to see like just how unusual that is, that President Eyring has been in the first presidency for so long, because he has been in the first presidency for a long time. Um, I want to go to my apostles spreadsheet really quick. I want to look at seniority again. Let me put this on the screen. Okay, so yeah, you're right. So Jeffrey R. Holland was one ahead of President Eyring in terms of seniority. President Holland became an apostle in 1994, President Eyring in 1995, and then it was almost 10 years later. That's a long time, until the next apostle was called, and it was elders Uchtdorf and Bednar at the same time. They were called together, but Elder Uchtdorf has seniority. So yeah, because President Eyring is serving in the first presidency, he's technically the president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. But since he's in the first presidency, then the next person becomes the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. So that's going to be Elder Uchtdorf. I don't think he's been set apart yet. I'm sure that they would have announced that, and undoubtedly they would wait until the funeral of President Holland. So maybe in the next couple days we'll see a news article talking about him becoming the president of the Quorum of the 12. And then after that, it's Elder Bednar. So oh my gosh, Elder Bednar, he has stood out to me ever since he became an apostle, because when he did become an apostle, at that time, he really stood out because of his age. And I think it was in his first general conference talk, he said something like, well, one of these things is not like the others, because he was so, like, relative to the others, he was so young. When you look at this spreadsheet, he actually doesn't really stand out. So here's the age at time of call in column F. So he was 52, but I mean, Jeffrey R. Holland, he was called at 53. Dallin H. Oaks, 51. L. Tom Perry, 51. But yeah, and then look at this, President Monson, at the age of 36. Boyd K. Packer at 45. So taking the long view and looking back in time, it doesn't really stand out too much. But at the time that he was called, everybody had already been used to all these older apostles. We just said that it was, the gap in time was from 1995 to 2004. So, but that stuck out to me. I was like, wow, he's really young. And I've always thought he's probably going to become president of the church one day because of his age. And now here we are at the end of 2025, about to start 2026. And I mean, he's basically next in line to become the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. He probably will be within the next couple years. So that's really interesting. Okay. Let's see. Let's go back here. Thank you, Goblin, for your comments. Angela Cox. Hi, Jared and family. Happy New Year, and thank you for all that you research and share with this community. Excited for the new scripture that I saw President Nelson talk about, but the vid disappeared quick. What? The new scripture that he talked about? Are you talking about like a new book of scripture? we talking about the sealed portion of the gold plates? Scriptures from the 10 Lost Tribes, maybe? President Holland, he dropped a breadcrumb one time on social media saying that there's a lot of other good stuff to come after he had mentioned these different books of scripture, the canon that we currently have. Dr. Dew, 11th is my mom's birthday. 2026 is one acceptable year for the Lord. We had a dream team there for a minute since Hinkley. Yeah, they were. That's a good way to describe it. They were kind of a dream team, weren't they? Ford and Faith just joined. Janet Manning. What is really weird is with Nelson dying of the 20 on the 27th and Holland dying on the 27th. What about the Salt Lake Temple being dedicated April of 2027? It makes me stop and think there's something to this. Yeah, there could be. I mentioned it in a recent video. Somebody had commented and said that made that same point. How it's like, well, the Salt Lake Temple is going to be dedicated in 2027, so yeah, sure, why not? Maybe it points to that. Dr. Dew, Happy New Year. New dude. Janet Manning, tomorrow is a new beginning of the year. Happy New Year to each and every person. Dr. Dew, he lives, and we should be living as if we know that. That will be the sign that ushers in his presence. Tanya Bishop, I forgot so much crazy stuff happened right when this year started. It's exciting paying attention by watching you put everything together. Thank you. I'm glad that you find value in the channel, and it is a lot. It's so much. I feel like doing stuff like this is necessary because otherwise, like, we all just kind of live in the moment, and it's not like we have a perfect memory. We're human beings and we forget things, and as things become more and more common, like natural disasters and just crazy news, like the longest shutdown in U.S. history, like we all start to kind of get desensitized to it. I really feel like we're at that part of Third Nephi where it's said that the Nephites became less and less astonished at a sign, because I feel like I'm like that. But when you really stop and think about it, cognitively, and you just look at the raw data and you compare, stuff is happening right now. Just so many things that we've never seen before, and it's happening so frequently. It's not like it was in 2015. It's not like it was in 2005. I promise you that, because I've been trying to go back in time and add anything that I think is relevant. The church is so different than it was in 2005. If you think about it, if you think about garments, you think about changes to the endowment, you think about the number of temples that have been announced, you think about how there's no more Boy Scouts. Think back to the year 2005. Where were you in 2005? I was on my mission, and there's just been so much. The mission age being dropped for both men and women, to where now women can serve at the age of 18. That's one of the new developments, right? Wasn't it age 18? Let's see. Let me consult my spreadsheet. I can't remember everything. That's why I have to have these spreadsheets. Timeline. Sometimes I can't even remember the names of the spreadsheets. Preparing the church for the second coming. Maybe I put it on timeline missionary work. Am I just making this up? That did happen, didn't it? Did I just like switch to a parallel universe? In my universe, news came out that the mission age was lowered. Yeah, November 21st. Young women who choose to serve a full-time mission may begin their service at age 18. Okay, I guess I have some homework to do. I need to add this to my spreadsheets. I don't even get everything. I don't even record everything on the spreadsheets. It's just too much. Oh man, this thing with the tornado in Independence and how they updated this website, and now I can actually see it. Let's look at it again. Sorry, maybe it doesn't impact you the same way it does me, but here it is. This is the June 3rd tornado, the closest to the temple lot since 1950. As Community of Christ was having their world conference, and right here it went over a business called Temple Engineering on Truman Road. Which, by the way, driving on Truman Road, like we like to do a drive where where is it? Where like we'll come up here, we'll drive by the temple lot, in the Independence Visitor Center, and then we'll usually drive on Lexington and then go into downtown Independence, historic downtown, where you have the courthouse and the public square right here. And then we'll go up and then drive on Truman Road. And you go all the way this way. And it doesn't take very long until it starts to kind of like become country. And you start to see properties with a lot of land and homesteads. And then it just keeps going. And then it just feels like you're just completely in the country. It's a really nice drive. Oh yeah, then we usually... Wait, where is it? Oh, and then we usually end it here at this road that goes up to Buckner. And this is also a nice drive right here. If you go on the 24, it's really pretty out this way. Anyway, sorry, not that you guys care about that. I guess I just want to let you know we're really enjoying living here. It's nice. Okay. Angela Cox. President Nelson also passed on Shabbat Shuvah, which is the day of returning. How it goes with what is happening in the winding up scenes. Yeah, that's right. I remember talking about that in a video. I feel like there was something else too. Maybe it was just that Shabbat. Oh, no. I know what it was. The Haftarah, which is like the weekly reading that they do. It's like their Come Follow Me. It had to do with Moses taking leave of Israel, like guiding them to the promised land, giving them their final instructions, and basically saying goodbye to Israel before they enter the promised land. Yeah, I forgot about that. I'm gonna go to Hebcal. No, okay. Let's see. Haftarah schedule. Whatever. I don't want to do this right now. Do I? No, I don't want to. No, I don't want to do it. You guys believe me? You saw that video, right? Okay. God's Girl says that was Elder Kevin G. Brown from Jamaica. Yeah. Dr. Dew, blink of an eye. Tanya Bishop, Elder Bednar has always stood out to me as well. Even as a child, I noticed a different feeling about him. Yeah, me too. Dr. Dew, Shazam. Are you okay? Dr. Dew is on another wavelength right now, unless I'm missing something. Cabria with Will You Walk with Jesus. By the way, make sure to subscribe to her. She has been like a big fan and supporter ever since I started my channel. She has now started her own channel, which started, I think it started in October. It was basically just before General Conference, and she's doing really good. She says, on the church website, there is an intro video from Elder Bednar for the Old Testament, and it seems like a setup to continue to give us correct understanding as we read. I'm excited for it. It's under the Insights from Apostles. If they keep adding their tidbits, it will be really cool to study alongside them as they give their 2 cents on the scriptures we are reading. Yeah, that'd be good. I think the more we hear from them, the better. Whether it's social media or things like that on the church website or whatever. Deborah says, it's exciting to watch together. Janet Manning says, love your videos. Will you walk with Jesus? Okay. Love your videos. Will you walk with Jesus? I haven't seen the one today or yesterday's, but I appreciate all your work that you're doing. Again, thank you. Nambusaksaba says, my daughter, born in 2005, is now serving a mission. That's great. Where, if you don't mind me asking? Tanya says, yes, 18 for girls now. Cabria is responding to Janet. And then Dr. Dew, worldly changes, but not spiritual ones. Yep. Flipping spreads, like spreadsheets. And then Janet, you're so welcome. Would you walk with Jesus? Okay. Well, I think we might be getting toward the end of the of the live stream. Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about? Any other insights? Anything that's on your mind as we are getting ready to move into this new year? Rebecca says, I appreciate you and your content. Thank you. And thank you to everybody for all your kind words. I'm glad that you're enjoying the channel. I'm doing the best that I can. I take this very seriously. I am just one person, so not everything is 100% accurate. I make mistakes. I forget things, but I'm doing what I can. Dr. Dew, you always ready out of context. I am commenting to you and you read it afterwards without context. Oh, okay. So you're like, yeah. It's hard for me to keep up with the chat in real time. Nambu Soksaba says, I am from South Africa. My daughter is serving in Zambia. Okay, cool. So it must already be, yeah, of course, it's New Year's where you're at, because right now it's 10:09 p.m. here in Missouri. South Africa time. Is it just one time zone? I don't know. Google says that it's already 6:09 a.m. over there. What? It's already 6:09. Well, I guess that makes sense. Okay. Wow, you're up early. The Civic Republic military, I believe that at the deadline of the Community of Christ to get financially squared away by 2030, will land in our church's anniversary in 2030, leading us buying back Temple Lot. Yeah, well, one reminder about them, Community of Christ, they don't own the Temple Lot itself. Um, the Temple Lot, let's go back to this. Let's see. Let's go back to this. The Temple Lot is owned by a really small little church called Church of Christ Temple Lot. So this is like basically their headquarters building. It's just a small white chapel. I actually had the opportunity to film inside there, in case you're curious. Let's see, where is it at? Yeah, right here. Explore inside Church of Christ Temple Lot's headquarters. That's the view of the Community of Christ temple from inside. Here's their, like, sacrament area, chapel. And I got to see inside this is their room where their 12 apostles meet, right here. And I was interested to see, you can see right here, they have a map of the world, but then they have a separate map just of Africa. Because Africa is going through some kind of like spiritual renewal right now or something. But it seems like Africa is like really becoming very important to many churches, especially, well, all churches, but maybe even more so for like small churches that are kind of struggling because they need membership. So this was a rare opportunity to film inside here. There was a couple other rooms that I wasn't able to film inside, but in this video I pretty much got the whole building with their permission, of course. I didn't just go rogue or anything like that. But let's step outside. Here's the temple lot, and I don't know for sure if the 24 temple complex would include the land over here where they have their auditorium, the Community of Christ, but I think that it would, from what I can tell. And then definitely the spiral temple of Community of Christ right there. Come on. Anyway, you can see it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know when it would happen. All I can tell you is what Grok said. Grok said that based on other churches that have done similar things, they've sold their headquarters building or they sold a bunch of meeting houses. They would put out kind of like messaging to kind of prepare their church, something like 6 months to 18 months ahead of time. And so I feel like it could happen next year. I don't know if, like, with the Kirtland Temple, I don't know if they planned it in such a way that we would purchase it just before the anniversary of the dedication of the Kirtland Temple, because it was purchased on March 5th, and then the dedication, wasn't that on March 27th? Dedication date. Yeah, March 27th. So we purchased the Kirtland Temple on March 5th, and after it was purchased, it was like closed for 20 days. And then it reopened. I guess it would have been March 25th or maybe March 26th. And so if they were wanting to do something similar, like say that we purchased the actual temple lot, not talking about Community of Christ, or maybe, okay, either one or both, or I don't know. I wonder if they would plan it in such a way that the purchase would happen around the time that the the land was dedicated. So let me show you this. So on the sidewalk that's closest to the auditorium, there's the first marker of the Missouri Mormon Walking Trail that's here in Independence, Missouri. It's a set of 14 markers like this one that are in the sidewalks of Independence. And this one has a depiction of Joseph Smith. It's the only artwork that I know of that shows Joseph Smith at the temple lot. So I love this thing. But it was the temple lot was dedicated on the 3rd of August. So if it's similar to the Kirtland Temple, I wonder if they would announce the purchase like in July, June, July, maybe in August or something like that. That'd be super interesting. It's also interesting. This is just a side note, but this year, okay, where'd it go? So when I had first discovered this plaque for myself, I had no idea that this was here until several months after I moved here. I thought that I had seen everything that there's to see on the temple lot. Then I found this plaque. Somebody told me about it. And then later I found out about the 14 plaques. But what happened was, let's see, LDS Missouri artifacts. Okay, let me go to explore church sites. Yeah, here it is. So this is the video I made on that day. So I published it on the 7th, but I recorded it on the 6th. I think that's how it went. But on Facebook, I posted it on the 6th. And then the next day, oh, well, this is August 8th. So this was August 7th that I posted this. And then this article was published on August 8th. The man who owned the mold for that sidewalk marker, he donated it to the church the next day, the day after I found out about it for myself. This blew me away. Anyway, I think there's a church news article that has more pictures, but anyway, they have it here. The mold for that marker was given to the church the day after I found it for myself for the first time. If you didn't know, and I've done videos about this, but it wasn't actually Joseph Smith that dedicated the temple lot. He was there, as you can see, but it was Sidney Rigdon that offered the prayer. But Joseph Smith did place the stones, the markers where the corners of the temple, or at least, sorry, I know that he placed, I think, the northeast stone. And then there were some other stones too. Come on. Okay. Let me do it like this. Here we go. This is the spot of the northeast stone. They didn't actually find the northeast stone itself, but they found 2 other stones that allowed them to orient where the corners of the temple should be. But the northeast stone would have been right here. Okay. Let me catch up with the chat here. Janet says, well, I'm going to go to bed, you guys, and have a good night. Jared, thanks again for the live stream. It is nice to be able to chat about the second coming. Good night, everyone. All right, good night, Janet. I'm sure you're already gone at this point. Dr. Dew, I knew a girl from Zambia named Tinke. Angela Cox, President Holland's powerful intro to the devotional talk for Christmas. CH Vid, Happy New Year. Hope 2026 is a great one. Kathy Berry, did you take note of the blood moon in the Middle East this year. No, probably not. I'll see if I can look into that later, though. Deborah, I have a feeling Elder Bednar may be prophet when the Savior comes. Nambu Saksamba says she was initially assigned to serve in Zimbabwe, but there was a delay in her visa application, and then she was placed to serve in Zambia temporarily. Dr. Dew, with Oaks, the next step in our work will have to do with discernment. Okay, Nambu says, yes, it is 6:09 a.m. Dr. Dew, judgment and mercy, we need to be ready for the dispensation. Time is so relative, but unkind. Angela Cox, that's like the church office building. They have those on the side. Tanya says, I had a dream about the Antichrist in 2019. When I woke up, God said the middle of the middle. I have another word, but it's blocked. Chad Africa is one to watch. Oh, I missed one. Mic Drop Music. This is Michael. I've interviewed him before on the channel. He says, I got to sing at President Holland's funeral today. It was an immensely sacred experience. Definitely worth watching. You can find the whole thing on YouTube. Yeah, everybody subscribe to him. I'm going to find the video where me and Jen from Christian Fire Poppy, we interviewed him. Let's see. What did I name that video? Oh, no, I have it. Oh. What did I name that video? Sorry, give me a second. Oh, there it is. There it is. There it is. It's called This Time When President Nelson Spoke, It Was Different. Everything went dead silent. I don't know if you guys saw this video or not, but this was a really good one. Me and Jen were talking to Mike. He's a member of the Tabernacle Choir. Make sure to subscribe to him. His channel is called Mic Drop Music. In fact, I'll pull that up right here. Mic Drop Music. I might as well just put this in the chat right now. There. There's the link for Mic Drop Music. Thanks for dropping in, Mike. So stupid. That was a bad joke. Okay. You know, I think I need to take off right now, though. I'm getting kind of tired. We've been going for, oh my gosh, like 2.5 hours. So much to talk about. I'm sure that there's so much that we missed, but I really feel like there has been a compression of events, and I think that there's going to be more of them, more frequently, more changes in the church. I'm very interested to see how 2026 is going to go. I think there's going to be a lot of big things. So just stick with me. I'll try and bring you the news as I can in my analysis, and hopefully put things in context as we look at timelines and look at statements of church leaders. If things happen here in Missouri, I'll try and document them directly. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some news coming out of Missouri this next year. Things are crazy. All right, you guys,